This is your friendly reminder to never settle. How you do anything is how you do everything. It is so important that you don't settle for anything other than what you deserve. Okay, you know what? It's gonna be what it's gonna be. I'm gonna say what I gotta say, and then I can say that I did this. This is one step to me unlocking a new level of freedom for myself, honestly. It's really just me stepping into myself more. And that has been a journey. Hey, I'm Ashley. Welcome to my channel. I am so excited to be here with you today, and I'm really excited to talk about what we're going to talk about today. I think that this is something that I did not see enough about when I was going through it, and so I just thought that I would create a safe space and an opportunity to help someone else who may be in some kind of similar situation to what I was in. So let's dive into this topic. We are going to get into a very important, kind of juicy topic that I think will help a lot of people. And that's why I'm here. So stay tuned for what I have to say about the 5 questions that I asked myself when I was 6 months from my wedding and I decided to walk away. So let's get into it. Just to give you some background, 5 years ago, I called off my engagement 6 months before the wedding. Everything, and I mean everything, was planned. All the deposits were paid. Um, Everything was ready. you know, my bachelorette trip was planned.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
All the deposits, the florist, the venue, the food, the drinks, the DJ, my officiant, the flowers, everything was done. And I still hadn't sent out the save the dates that were sitting on our kitchen table for months because I had this serious feeling of doubt when it came to whether I was making the right decision on marrying my now ex. It was it was tough. We had been together for 5 years. We had really built a life together. Our lives were very intertwined. By the end of it, we had been living together for 2 years. We went to law school together. I knew his family, he knew my family. I knew his friends, he knew my friends. It was tough, but at the end of the day, I know in my heart of hearts, even to this day, that I made the right decision. And walking away from that relationship and not proceeding with marrying that person is one of the biggest and best decisions that I've ever made for myself. And I do not regret it at all. I want to share with you some of the things that I experienced and how I finally came to the conclusion that I just couldn't do it. I could not, in good faith, marry someone that I knew I was going to wind up divorcing. So I saw this quote from a divorce attorney actually who said that almost every single divorce that she's ever been a part of, that she's ever had to facilitate on behalf of a client, at least one of the parties, whether it's the husband or the wife and the wife, or the husband and the husband, whatever the case may be, one of the parties in the marriage knew that they were going to get a divorce before they got married and still did it anyways. And so I can completely understand why that could happen because the pressures of the world would have you believe that your life doesn't really have a lot of value if you're not married. That if you've spent years with someone, you might as well just get married to them. That everyone's going to judge you and everyone's going to have questions for you. And, you're, of course, you're going to be hurting the other person by saying, like, I can't marry you. But at the end of the day, you're the one that has to live your life. You're the one that has to go and live the life day in and day out that you know that you're not satisfied in, that you feel unfulfilled in, that maybe even you feel unloved or neglected in some kind of way, misunderstood, whatever the case may be. But whatever the case may be, you feel that you're not living your most authentic life. And you can't do that with this person. So that was one of the biggest questions that I asked myself. Number one, can you live your most authentic life in harmony with this other person? So to me, that means a lot of things. In my relationship, I had grown to feel that I had to shrink for the other person. I felt that I couldn't be my full self in the relationship and without feeling some kind of backlash or whatever the case may be. I just felt like I really had to kind of water myself down to an extent in a lot of different ways. And it made me feel bad about myself because I found myself starting to self reject because basically what was happening was I was operating in this relationship as you can't be your full self, so you need to calm it down a little bit, you need to dim your light a little bit, you need to shrink a little bit, which basically meant all those parts of you that want to show up as yourself, we don't like that, that's not accepted, and so I started to internalize those feelings, and I realized that they were really weighing on me very heavily. And in the relationship there was one point where my sister came to visit. She knows me. She knows certain things about me, and she can pinpoint like something isn't right here. So she came into town and visited with us, and I was really disappointed because when she came in town, she barely spent any time with us. Like I felt like I saw her for dinner a couple times, I saw her for lunch a couple times, but I wanted to spend more time with her while she was in DC where we lived, and I just felt like I wasn't seeing her, so I was upset with her. And on her way back to Houston, where we're from, she called me. I was actually in the car with my ex, and she said, "Hey, I just wanted to let you know what I observed. I felt like you weren't able to be yourself unless your ex wasn't around. That you like as soon as he came around, your light kind of dimmed, and you weren't able to be your full bubbly, outgoing self. You were kind of like a shell of yourself." And I couldn't even. I had no rebuttal, and I'm a lawyer, right? I had no rebuttal. I could not try to push back on that because I knew she was right. I knew she was right. And it infuriated me, but it also made me really sad. I was mad because I kind of was sitting with my ex on the phone with my sister, like, yeah, I know what you're talking about. I understand. And also, it made me sad because I'm like, I'm with this person and I feel like, in a way, he doesn't accept me. And so I dealt with that. And when it got to that point where I finally was like, I can't do this, that was one of the questions that I asked myself. So this is a big one. And I think the number two really is something that is very, very hard for a lot of people to deal with and a lot of people to accept. And the question that I asked myself was, if nothing changes, can you be happy? And I asked myself that question for a number of reasons. One, people always say, you can't change anybody. You can't change anybody. You can't change anybody. But when you're in a relationship with someone, when you love someone, you see things about them that you're like, I wish that things could be differently in this way. I wish things could be different in that way. And it can cause you to feel like, well, if they just adjusted here and then I can adjust there and so on and so forth, then maybe things could work. And I found us both trying that with each other. We both kept trying to change each other in what seemed like subtle ways, but they were obviously like bigger issues going on. And no matter how much I tried to influence him, no matter how much he tried to influence me, we were still kind of like on opposite ends of the spectrum when it came to certain things. And so, we would have these talks. We would go, we went to therapy a little bit. Just these different things where we just could not agree. And so when it really came down to it, I had to sit with myself and say, okay, we've been going at this for 5 years. Things have improved in some ways, right? Like I've seen some incremental improvements and changes. Um, but the changes that I would need to see are like monumental changes, right? Like fundamental changes. And two things I realized. One, if you really, at least this may be the hopeless romantic in me speaking, but I feel like if you really truly love someone, you accept them for exactly how they are, and you want to be with them, right? Um, and what I realized was it got to a point where I could accept my ex for who he was, but I didn't want to be with him based on who he was because it got to the point where I had to just say, okay, there is no guarantee that this person is going to change the way that you need them to or become this person that you would need them to be in order to feel comfortable in a relationship with them and marrying them. And also, it's really it's not my place to change you. Like you are who you are, right? I am who I am. It's not my place to say you need to change all of these things about yourself. No, that's not fair. Everyone should be who they are and then find someone who meets you there, right? So, just a little story time. When we were in the throes of planning the wedding and all that kind of stuff, and it was getting to the point where we were arguing a lot, like every week about something. And I know that some of that was just the pressure of the wedding, but also it was like the pressure of the marriage coming up and we're not agreeing on things. So like I said, I had everything planned. So I called up my officiant for our wedding, and I just told him kind of what I was experiencing, and because he's also a pastor, and he does a lot of marriages, and I really trust. I had grown to trust his opinion and his judgment and just his guidance. And so I reached out to him and I told him what was going on in my relationship, and I told him that I wasn't happy. I told him some of the complaints that I had, and he said to encourage me. By the way, he told me this story to encourage me. He said, I married a couple years ago, and um, they were having problems where the wife just wasn't happy with the husband for years. And after 20 years of marriage, by the way, after 20 years of marriage, the husband finally saw the light and changed. And I think my officiant thought that he was encouraging me, but that sounded absolutely awful. And also, in a way, it did not apply to me, right? Because I had not married this person yet. I had not made that commitment of through better or worse, through thick or thin, through sickness and health, through whatever the case. I hadn't made that promise yet, right? So I was like, okay, well, I don't want to make that promise to this person. I don't feel comfortable because at the end of the day, the what I would need to see from this person, I don't see, and it became this thing of, are you going to risk waiting 20 years or to eternity to see if this person is ever going to become the person that you need them to be to feel comfortable and confident and fulfilled in this relationship? And when I thought about it, the answer was no. I could not risk that, like for myself, like especially when the issues that we were having were so fundamental. Let me pause right there and talk about what some of those issues were. So, some of the big issues were, because I know that this comes up a lot when I talk about this, people, well, what was it? What was it? What was it? We did not really agree on like our spirituality. So I am a believer in God, and I also believe in having a strong relationship with God. And to be honest, that wasn't something that was a priority to my ex. And so I found myself like dragging him to church every once in a while. Like I didn't even go that much because I was in law school and that was taking over my life. But I found myself kind of like dragging him to church, him huffing and puffing about it, and we finally had a conversation about it, and he just did not feel the same way that I did. So that was a huge thing for me, because for me, that is critical. That is foundational for me. Another thing was I never felt like we were on the same page emotionally fully. I felt like there were still walls up on his end, and like I thought I could influence him by always spilling out my guts and being super vulnerable and talking about things that bother me and talking about things in the past that have happened to me and so on and so forth. And that would kind of get him to open up more and share more so that I could get to know him more. And that just wasn't happening. And it was kind of communicated to me that that would possibly happen after we got married. And I was like, why are you withholding that from me? Like, wouldn't you want me to know who you are before we get married? It was it wasn't something that I could agree with. And so there was also a huge disconnect and disagreement on our careers, where we would live, when we would have children, how we would raise our children, foundational things, like things that we just did not agree on. And some of those things will come up when I'm sharing the other things that I asked myself when I finally decided that I could not proceed in this relationship. So let's move on. And this one is a quick one. And it's always something that I think we have to remember, right? So the next question that I asked myself, was the good worth the bad? And I asked myself this because I had to be real with myself. My ex was not all bad. And I think sometimes there's this notion of like, oh, like, does this person have some redeeming qualities and so on and so forth? Everybody does. Even like when you watch different movies, like action movies or crime movies, every villain has some redeeming qualities. And I'm not trying to say that my ex is the villain, but I'm just saying in general, everyone has redeeming qualities. Everyone does. But do those qualities actually redeem themselves for the things that are lacking? And when I thought about it, the answer was no. I think we were on the same page with some things. I think we were on the page with some things, like things that were more like on paper kind of things, like, oh, we were both um educated and family oriented, and we both like to travel, we both like to have fun, we have a healthy social life, things like that. But the other things that I just mentioned before, those were not there, and that could not compensate for the fact that those things were lacking. They just, at the end of the day, some of those things I probably could have done without if I had the more foundational things. And so, one thing that I will say is, too, I really did not know what I wanted until I was in that relationship, until things were coming up for me, for us. And I had said, like, hey, this is not okay. I don't really like this. Or we were having the same arguments and having the same disagreements about the same things. And then I realized, wow, there really are some common themes here that we are just not agreeing on consistently. And then what I would notice is we would argue about the thing. One of us would back down for a while and say, oh, it's okay. I'll work on it. I'll fix it. Maybe I'll come around to it. Give me some time, or whatever the case may be. And then maybe things would seem like okay for a while. And then it would come back up again. It would just keep coming back up again, because when it came down to it, these were like fundamental things about myself and about the other person that were just who we are. And the more that I realized that, the more that I was like, okay, maybe this person is just not my person. So let's move on to the next thing. This one, I mean, I feel like all these questions kind of touch on each other, but I think laying them out in this way, where you ask these specific questions, can help you understand, like, is this my person? Is this someone that I should really proceed in life with? And the sun is going down, so I have to record this very quickly. It's the very first day of daylight savings time ending, I guess. I don't know. And so the sun is going down at like 3:34, and I'm so sad about it, but it's okay. I'm in New York. It is what. So here's another one. If you decide to live the life that your partner wants, will you be able to accept it, or will you regret that life that you're living? And I knew that I was going to regret it. I remember one time that my ex and I got into an argument, and I specifically told him, I said, if I don't live out my dreams for you, if I and just to share a little bit of my dreams, one of my big dreams was to move to New York, start my own law firm, and work with like fashion clients, fashion brands, and things like that. We'll talk more about that later, but that was like one of my big dreams pretty much since I got to law school where I met my ex over a decade ago now. It was always one of my biggest dreams. I took the New York bar, passed on the first try. We'll talk about all of this later. But that was one of the big things that we just could not agree upon because my ex was from DC. We went to school in DC. His family was in DC. Everything was in DC, and he wanted to stay there. And I'm like, well, this is something that has been on my heart for years, and I've been working towards it for years. And there have been times, like I said before, where I would say, okay, well, maybe I won't go to New York, or yeah, you know what, you're right. Like maybe I shouldn't go, or it's too big, it's too busy, it's scary, it's intimidating. I'll just stay here and try to just start my firm here. And but it would still be on my heart, you know. And I know it's cheesy when people say follow your heart, but that's real. Like it's very, very real. And so that was something that we constantly had a conflict about. And so I told him, I said, hey, if I don't follow my dream of moving to New York and at least trying this whole fashion and law thing out, I am going to resent you. I'm going to resent the house you want to build in or buy in DC. I'm going to resent the kids you want to have. I'm going to resent the entire life. And he kind of just looked at me like, okay. And so it really became a thing of, it's like, you know, are you going to choose you, or are you going to choose what I want? And so because I was faced with that question, um, I had to ask myself, like, will you regret marrying this person knowing the type of life that he wants to live when you want to live a different type of life? And I was like, absolutely, I will regret it. I can foresee it already, you know, and I could also see myself marrying this person, possibly having kids with him, and still knowing that I want to move to New York and want to do this thing because it is so heavy on my heart, and still trying to figure out a way to do it anyway. You know, whether it's divorcing him, taking my kids, moving to New York. I don't know what I was going to do, but I could already foresee myself like, I'm going to make this dream happen regardless. So if you're not going to be a part of that, then you're not going to be a part of that. And so that was another question that I asked myself. And the answer was yes, I would regret it if I didn't live out my dream and I just lived the life that he wanted to live. Number 5 actually gets to part of what I just mentioned. Do I want to raise children with this person? Do I can I even see it, right? Because for me, because our values and our priorities were so different, I didn't even see how that was possible, because I didn't want my kids to be like confused about like, okay, what are our values? Like mom is saying this, dad is saying that. What are we supposed to do here? Because this is my thing, right? I don't expect that we're going to agree on everything. I feel like that would kind of be boring if everything I said was like, yes, yes, you're right, you're right, you're right. That would be boring, right? Like I'm a lawyer. I kind of love the hustle and the tussle and the going back and forth a little bit. I love to, and I also love to learn about other people's ways of life and thinking and being. And it also helps me to kind of stay on my toes and to continue to evolve and stay open minded. But when I'm thinking about how I want to raise my children, I want us to have a solid foundation built on the same thing. And I just couldn't see how I could build a solid foundation with someone who had a different foundation than me, like a really different foundation from me. I didn't see how that was possible. And so that's another reason why I couldn't move forward with the engagement. And here's a bonus, and I honestly, this shouldn't even be a bonus. This is a huge question that I had to ask myself, and I didn't like the answer to it. And it was a clear, like, you can't do this. So the bonus number 6, I would say, was, do you trust this person to lead your household? I couldn't, no. No, my answer was no. And I think again it comes down to those, that foundation, right? I like me being the person that I am. I've achieved quite a few things. I'm very ambitious. I um I'm a go-getter, right? I have had to become a leader in situations that I didn't necessarily want to. It was just kind of like, I got to do it. It's either you do it or no one's going to do it, kind of thing. Very independent person, right? But I do not want to have to be that person in a marriage. I do not want to have to be the one taking initiative. I do not want to have to be the one that's making all the big decisions. And I also want to feel comfortable with the person that is going to do that, right? Like, obviously, defer to me, and obviously, like, let's talk about it. But it would be so nice to feel like I can just take some of that burden off my shoulders of constantly having to make decisions for my life, and constantly having to um, just plan out and anticipate every single little thing in my life, and be able to kind of hand that over to someone else who's willing and ready to do that, but also someone that I trust to do that and to make the right kinds of decisions for me, him, and my family, right? Because it comes back to the last question, do you trust this person to raise your children? It all kind of comes together, and you have to have certain answers that you're comfortable with moving forward with a particular person. And so, honestly, those are the questions that I asked myself that led me to realize that I could not move forward in marrying the person that I had been with for 5 years and who I had been engaged to. And we were 6 months out from the wedding, and I just couldn't do it. I've gotten a lot of feedback from people who have said, "Oh, you're so brave. Like, wow, that's so bold. I know a lot of people wouldn't have done that. What did your parents say? What did your friends think?" And when I think about everything, I know, I know that I made the right decision. And it doesn't mean that everything's been perfect. It doesn't mean that there haven't been bumps along the road for me, but I do know that that was one decision that I had to make. And I honestly made that decision for the both of us. I can't read anyone's mind, but I bet that my ex probably felt some of the same ways that I did, but maybe didn't know how to handle it. I remember our last conversation that we had. Um, and I basically told him, like, I love you, but I love me more, and I can't do this. And I just don't think that this is the right thing for us to do, and that we really need to take a step back and um, not do this. And his response, it kind of like was a dagger, but also it also kind of made me mad a little bit, because he just said, "You're so strong." And it was a dagger because I'm like, I thought I didn't have to be so strong with you. I thought I could finally take off my cloak or whatever, take off my cape or whatever you want to call it, and just defer to you and let you handle things. But um, as much as I tried to, I just felt like we were veering on a course that I was not comfortable with. And it's been 5 years, and I do not have a regret about it. I actually wish sometimes I wish I would have done it sooner, but then again, at the same time, I feel like because I'm so hard headed, I am the type of person that's like, no, we can make it work. We can just work harder. We can just keep talking. We can go to therapy and so on and so forth. But it just gets to a point where it's like, listen, you need to see this person for who they are, not who you want them to be, not where their potential may lie, who they actually are. Because a lot of times when we're looking at someone's potential, we're projecting what we want to see from them. It's not just an objective potential. It's usually potential that you see in them that's going to benefit you in some kind of way. And that's really not fair because one, that person might be like, that's what you see me doing. I have no intention, no interest for that, you know? And I see that all the time. And I feel like there's a meme or something going around that talks about like you can't marry potential. And it's so true. You have to marry that person. You have to love that person for who they are. When I think about it, love is and being in love with someone is you accept them, you see them, first of all. That's number one. You actually see them for who they truly are, not their potential, not who they could be, not who they were, who they are right now. You actually see that person. And then also you love what you see, okay? And then also you accept it and you want to be a part of it and you don't want to change it. If you're making any changes, it's only to help them to become more of themselves. And I wasn't feeling that way towards him, and I was not feeling that way coming from him either. And so when I thought about those things, I realized that I had to get out and change the trajectory of my life, which I've done. I now live in New York and I have started my own law firm, and I'm still working on my dream of having like tons of fashion clients for my firm. I do have some, but I would love to have more. And so I'm doing the thing that I said that I was not going to do to be with this person, and it has not been easy. Being an entrepreneur is not easy at all, but I would not change it one bit. And honestly, it might sound crazy, but I am thankful for that experience because I really feel like it changed the course of my life in a very positive way. Because the last 5 years, I have done so much work on myself that I don't know if I would have ever done if this hadn't happened, because there were clearly things about myself that I needed to work through and work on that led me to be in a relationship that was so not aligned with who I am as a person. So, what I would say to anyone that might be going through something similar, whether you're just in a relationship with someone or you're engaged or maybe you're even married to the person, really think about the questions that I've posed for you to ask yourself and even ask your partner, because at the end of the day, this is about both of you. And I know that it can sometimes seem like, oh, you're just trying to break up people's relationships and stuff like that. I'm not encouraging people to not get married. What I'm encouraging people to do is to possibly have a long lasting relationship with someone. And I think a part of me has avoided talking about this because I still have not found that experience. I still haven't had that long lasting relationship. Um, but I think I had to go through this process of experiencing what I absolutely do not want in order for me to realize what I want and to be very compassionate with myself, compassionate with others. Obviously, realizing that no one is perfect. There's not going to be this like perfect person that is just going to do everything that you need them to do and be everything that you need them to be. It's really about that foundation. It's really about that foundation. And um I am willing to wait until I have that with someone, until I have that foundation, that solid foundation that I feel that we can build from no matter what, and that it can stand the test of time. Like I said before, I'm definitely a hopeless romantic, so I feel like that person is out there for me. And I'm still on my journey. I'm still on my healing journey from that experience and just life in general. And I really look forward to sharing so much of my insight, my experiences, my interests. I have a ton of them. And I really look forward to you checking out more of my content in the future. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it to the very end of this video, thank you so much. This is my very first YouTube video. And when I tell you, I can't even tell you how scared I've been to even do this, but I'm glad that I'm sharing more of myself because I know that when I have one on one conversations with people, it really touches them. And I just want to be able to expand my territory and expand my reach and really just hopefully help someone. That's really the main reason why I'm even sharing this. So, if you like this video, if you want to see more, please subscribe to my channel. It's my baby channel. It's my baby. You can follow me on Instagram at I am Ashley Cloud. You can also follow me on TikTok at the same name, I am Ashley Cloud. And stay tuned for so much more. I'm looking forward to sharing so many different things. We're going to be talking about all kinds of things here: relationships, living in New York, being a lawyer, becoming a lawyer, being an entrepreneur, fashion. I love to thrift. I did my own hair, so we'll talk about that kind of stuff. Beauty, wellness is a huge part of my life. So many things. I did want to shout out this top that I'm wearing. It's really cute. I actually forgot to put the thumbs on. Maybe it's because I have all these bracelets, but super cute top. It's by Nappy Head Club, and the back of it says "Protect Black Women." So super cute. I love this top so much. It's actually a bodysuit. And I love Black owned products, love Black owned brands. A lot of my clients are Black owned or owned by Black entrepreneurs and creatives and things of that nature. So I just really look forward to sharing more about myself. And maybe, like I said, I'm really just here to help people. And I really hope that this touched you. Like I said, please like, share, subscribe. Maybe there's someone that needs to hear this. Maybe you or a friend of yours is constantly complaining about their relationship. And if they're looking for something that's long term, maybe this could help them really decide whether or not it's best to move forward with that particular person or not. So, thank you so much for this. I am looking forward to sharing more. Have a good one.